The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. So this book was copyright 1897, and I have this paperback here from Dell. This is actually a Dell map back, and as you can see, there's a map of the area that the story kind of revolves around in this one. These are really cool paperbacks that Dell came out with. A lot of them were mysteries and kind of general fiction, but there was a few science fiction books that came out as well. This one is in particularly good condition, and there's a lot of extra stuff in here as well. We've got here kind of like what the story is about and the characters that are in the story. They just did a really good job with this series, and I'm really glad to have this copy. This came out, or it was printed in 1949. And I have kind of a more recent, I guess, this was from 1964. This is a Berkeley paperback with some, interesting cover art there. But I think this cover art kind of fits the story a little bit better. This is one of H.G. Wells' most famous novels. And I had never read this one before. I had read most of his other famous works, but I hadn't gotten to this one yet. And this surprised me in a couple ways. And, part of it was kind of what to be expected. Just the title of this one, you kind of knew what this was about. I had heard things about this story before. It's been made into at least one movie, I think multiple movies. But it really surprised me in some other aspects where this is kind of a science fiction horror in a way. And we have a main character who's called the Stranger, and he is the Invisible Man. And he's not necessarily a hero. H.G. Wells kind of takes you through his character arc, and at times you kind of can sympathize with him. Other times he's not likable at all, which is a little different, I think, from something that was written in 1897. So let's just kind of get into what this one is about. So when you start off in this novel, it's just the Invisible Man kind of coming into this inn and trying to kind of hide out for a little while. He's got himself wrapped up in coats and cloth bandages around his face, glasses, because any part of his body that's exposed is instantly recognizable as being invisible and not there. So he's very careful about his appearance to other people. And he's kind of booked a room in this inn, and the innkeeper and even some of the townsfolk, there's a guy who's going to fix a clock. They're all very curious about this guy. He's acting very weird. He's very introverted and really wants his privacy. And every once in a while, something slips where they can see a part of his body a little bit, and they think it just doesn't look right. So it's gotten a lot of attention from the town folk why this guy is here. And then he starts getting some interesting packages delivered to this inn, and you can kind of tell something's going on. So the book continues on. We have our Invisible Man. He kind of is trying to remain hidden or out of the public's eye, and he's up to something. And you learn pretty soon that he is trying to kind of reverse this. This really is a science fiction story because H.G. Wells goes into the description of how this occurred, how this man got himself invisible. And while it's not a completely plausible idea rooted in science, H.G. Wells does attempt to explain this in a way that kind of makes sense. And he does a pretty good job, especially for 1897. So our Invisible Man ends up kind of getting some help from some other people around town. But it doesn't really end there. Sometimes he gets help. Sometimes there's other things up his sleeve. And this is where the kind of villainous nature of him comes out. There was a lot of surprising twists and turns in this one, especially the further you read into it. There was a lot of things I didn't expect to be written about in this one, because I always had this kind of notion that this was just maybe a lighthearted novel about this guy who went invisible and he's trying to make his way in the world. But there's definitely more to it than that. You know, it's one that a lot of people have probably read before. It's very short. It's very easy to read. And it was a lot of fun. There was kind of an adventure aspect to it. And I pretty much enjoyed this thing cover to cover. It's probably not my favorite H.G. Wells book. I even think I like The Island of Dr. Moreau a little bit better. And that one also kind of had that horror element to it. But it was a very fun read. I'm surprised it took me this long to get around to it. So I'd say if you haven't read this one before, it's a real quick, easy read, something to pick up. It might surprise you the way it surprised me. And check it out if you get a chance. So leave that one pretty short. Next up, I'm going to be reading Stardance by Spider and Janine Robinson. So look for that one coming out soon. And once again, thanks for watching.